All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most powerful psychological technologies ever invented, belief systems. So think of this as a kind of tutorial, a look under the hood at how these systems are built to manage our deepest, most human fear.
So where does it all start? Well, it begins with this simple, stark, and uniquely human fact. You see, unlike any other animal on the planet, we have to live our lives with the quiet, constant knowledge that we're going to die. And this isn't just some philosophical thought. It's the core psychological problem that these belief systems are engineered to solve.
Okay, so let's start by really pinning down the problem. What exactly is this anxiety that's so unique to us? The one that these huge, complex systems are designed to fix?
Well, there's a term for it. Psychologists call it an existential threat. And it's not like the fear of a spider or a scary dog, something you can get away from. Nope. This is more like a constant, low-level hum of anxiety in the background of your life, just because you know there's a deadline. And if you don't manage that feeling, it can be totally paralyzing.
And this right here is a super important point. Religion doesn't invent this fear. It's already there, hardwired into being human. What it does, and what it does so well, is it organizes it. It takes all that messy, chaotic anxiety and gives it a structure, a framework. You could almost think of it as an operating system for dealing with death.
So if it's an operating system, how does it actually work? Well, the first big tool in the psychological toolkit is meaning. Belief systems create this grand cosmic story that acts as a powerful buffer against that raw existential dread.
And just look at the before and after here. On one side, you've got a reality that can feel totally random and frankly terrifying. But on the other side, when you reframe it through this purposeful narrative, everything changes. Suddenly death isn't the end, it's just a transition. Suffering isn't pointless, it's a test. Your life isn't just some fragile, fleeting thing, it's part of a much bigger story. The emotional weight of it all is completely different.
And let's be really clear here. From a purely functional perspective, this isn't about whether the story is true or false. What it is an act of psychological regulation. It's a powerful way to contain that fear, to soften the blow of life's hardest parts, and just make them more bearable.
But just having a good story, well, that's not always enough to silence the anxiety, because uncertainty itself is incredibly stressful for us. So the system offers a second, really powerful tool, the comfort of certainty. It taps right into our deep desire to trade the chaos of not knowing for the sweet clarity of authority.
And this is basically how that trade happens, step by step. First, you externalize authority. The big answers don't come from messy human arguments, they come from a perfect higher source. That lets you solidify the rules. This is right, that's wrong, no debate. And it gives the future a predictable structure. And the result? It's a profound sense of relief. That heavy, stressful burden of trying to figure everything out on your own is just lifted.
But there's always a trade-off, isn't there? This psychological safety net, it doesn't come for free. Because when you hand over the burden of uncertainty to an outside authority, you pretty much always start to hand over control as well. And at first, that deal feels amazing. Handing over that responsibility is just emotionally efficient. It cuts down on the day-to-day anxiety of having to make every single moral calculation by yourself. And in a complicated world, that kind of simplicity is genuinely comforting. But, and this is the big but, that efficiency has a price. Because when you put authority out there, control inevitably follows. The very same system that gives you comfort also starts to regulate how you behave. So how does it do that? Well, it's actually a brilliant psychological move. The system takes these huge, vague, unmanageable fears and it transforms them into concrete, manageable things. The paralyzing fear of death, that gets refocused into a specific fear of judgment. The anxiety about life being meaningless, that becomes a practical concern for obedience. Fear is basically repurposed into a tool for motivation. And this, right here, is why the system is so powerful. Because the best form of control isn't some external force, like a cop on the corner. No, it's an internalized fear. When people learn to police themselves, to feel that little jolt of anxiety when they even think about breaking a rule, the whole system of authority becomes invisible and incredibly efficient. So that brings us to the last big question. Why is this psychological technology so durable? Why does it stick around for centuries across all these different cultures, even when the specific stories change? This chart really gets to the heart of it. A person's conscious, intellectual belief in the story, that can go up and down over time. It's variable. But look at the conditioned fear, that deep, emotional reflex that's often put there in childhood, that stays incredibly strong.
The mind might leave the story behind, but the nervous system, it still remembers the rules.
And once you get that, so much about religious conflict starts to make sense. When someone is defending their belief system, they aren't just defending some abstract idea. They're defending the very psychological structure that keeps their deepest fears in check. So what might look like a simple intellectual debate to an outsider can feel like a genuine life-or-death threat to an insider.
And that brings our whole tutorial full circle. Because once you understand the mechanics underneath it all, you can reframe the entire conversation. Maybe the most useful question isn't, is this belief system true? But instead, how does this system function? How is it engineered to help us deal with the fundamental problem of being human?
Which leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Once you understand the architecture of this powerful psychological tool, you have to ask yourself, is outsourcing our fear management to an external system the only way or even the best way to live with the knowledge that we're all going to die? That's a question worth thinking about.